What's up, guys? It's Bromley from Empire Barbell. Today, I want to talk a little bit about what I think a lot of lifters today are missing out on and how it's detrimental to their training and their progress. So, when I came out, when I came into this field about 20 years ago, I started lifting for football in high school. I had no athletic background. I just went out for football because I needed to do something physical. I was overweight. I had no friends. Best decision I ever made. Now, I was a shitty athlete then. You could argue I'm a shitty athlete now, but I'm better at lifting. So that's really what caught my eye. I saw how I could improve steadily, week in, week out, and that's what I fell in love with. And I spent way more time in the gym than I spent doing anything else. So as part of that developmental process, I read and I learned from everything I could get my hands on, which at the time really was just the occasional Powerlifting USA, but it was mainly muscle rags. It was mainly flex and muscular development, whatever bodybuilding rags were on the shelf. I would scour those for any information I could find because at that time I just thought lifting was lifting. Now, the benefit of that is I learned how to progress from intensity, because when you're that young, all you know is that if you work hard, you get stronger. So I would push it in the gym every time. I had to train instinctively. I would follow these splits I found that were mainly bodybuilding workouts. They were very well rounded. They would be body part splits. I would work my biceps and my lats just like I would work my pecs and my quads. I still use compound movements as the backbone of the program, but it was really emphasizing body parts, developing your body as a whole. Now, that did a couple things. That made me well-rounded, so I didn't have a lot of weaknesses. My upper back grew just like my arms grew, just like my glutes and my quads grew. So as my squat progressed, I was more stable. I was comfortable. I didn't have issues with like the bar crumpling my upper back if it got heavy. When my overhead press progressed, I wasn't left with these really unstable shoulders as I would snap into a jerk because I was overreaching with weight that technically I was able to move, but my base wasn't able to handle. So that background mirrors a lot of what you see in athletes. You see a lot of people that started out in football or maybe started out bodybuilding, starting out just working out with the bros at an LA Fitness or 24 Hour Fitness, and then they progressed to powerlifting. Today you see a lot of people that went straight into some type of barbell sport, whether it's CrossFit, powerlifting, even strongman. We're getting people interested in strongman that have been training with weights for less than a year. So what you see as a byproduct of that is it's a lack of foundational development and the proliferation of weaknesses that grow as a byproduct of that. So here's a good example. A lot of the women that we train, there's a very common problem with females is that their hips and legs get very strong and it starts to outpace what their midsection and upper back can handle. That's very common. So when you see a lot of females pull big deadlifts, you tend to see a lot of rounded backs. And this is in elite women, this is in pro strong women, this is in a lot of powerlifters at the top. When you see elite men pull, you don't tend to see that quite as much. Now, a lot of that has to do with how men grow muscle mass at a faster rate than women do, and a lot of the accessory that goes into it. But what compounds that effect is no real background in any physique base or like bodybuilding type training. And going into these compound training programs that emphasize compound movements, you see a lot of those types of accessories kind of de-emphasized in favor of the compound movements themselves. Now for guys, that's great. I got the strongest when I went through a period where I was doing 2 to 3 compound movements a day, 3 days a week. I do a heavy top set of 5 or 3, drop down, do a set of 12. That worked for years. I was 19, 20, 21. I was eating like a cow, and I was just doing that very basic progression. And God, I got strong so fast. But the rate at which I build muscle from a light stimulus, or let's say a low volume stimulus like that, it's not the same that women build muscle. So women tend to benefit from a lot more volume, a lot more specific accessory work, a lot more time spent under tension reinforcing those positions. So it's not as straightforward as do a couple heavy sets of compound movements and then sky's the limit. So by not having this background in more well-rounded areas. A lot of lifters, not just women, I see this a lot with men too, they're cutting themselves short because they're, let's say, really trying to dial in their sumo deadlift technique for their next powerlifting meet, when the fact is their legs just aren't very strong. Or they're really trying to dial in that bench groove, when the fact is your shoulders kind of suck. So when you spend all this time in this technical arena, now you should always want to be a technical lifter, but drilling that technique, really emphasizing the specificity of barbell sports, is not going to make up for having a shitty foundational base. And many of us got that foundational base from, surprise, surprise, bodybuilding training. So it behooves everybody to take their accessory work seriously. This is something I have a problem with my athletes too, because we try to do it all together. Yeah, you're going to get good at the compound movements, but this bodybuilding accessory work, and that's all it is, this is bodybuilding. This has to be taken seriously. And I have a hard time getting people to keep the weight down on the compound lifts, but god damn it, I have a hard time getting them to bump the weight up on the accessory lifts. You know, you want to see people sandbag a workout, program a few sets of 20 on croc rows, and see how many people skip out before that pops up in their training. In fact, general bodybuilding work, it does such a good job of rounding you out. I even saw a reputable CrossFit coach saying that he would take a well-rounded bodybuilder over any other type of athlete if he was going to have his pick of who he was going to mold into the next great CrossFitter. He said the type of training they do trains a bunch of different energy systems. They tend to have some type of aerobic capacity, and they tend to have very few physical weaknesses. The rest is just teaching movement patterns on compound weaknesses, which is a lot better after you've already developed all of the pieces. So this isn't just a call to, you know, prioritize bodybuilding as kind of a beginner mode of training. It's a call for all of you training right now to not skimp on your goddamn accessory work. So long story short, keep the weaknesses at bay, take the accessory work seriously. You are not above bodybuilding, okay? And specificity is for contest prep. The rest of your season, you should be training like a damn bodybuilder, trying to fill out your weaknesses and make sure that you're well-rounded, because if you don't, you're going to hit a wall and you're going to get injured. All right? Leave your questions and comments in the comment section. Until next time, I'm Bromley from Empire Barbell. I'll see you.